guys, I'm Aaron Edgar, and I'm an instructor here on Drumeo Edge. I've got a really cool lesson for you today. What we're going to do is we're going to break down 3 of my personal favorite Travis Barker grooves. There's a couple from Blink-182 and one from his side project, Boxcar Racer. Now, you can get all this and a whole bunch more on Drumeo Edge. But for now, I wanted to give something special just for you guys out on YouTube, guys and gals, of course. Let's get right into it. The first track that we're going to look at is Down by Blink-182. So this beat sounds a little bit daunting and it sounds almost breakbeat, but it's a little bit easier than you might think. Let's break it down. First thing we're going to do is we're going to try and just get rid of those 16th notes on the hi-hat. So let's just go with 8th notes, and we're also going to get rid of all those little 32nd note offbeat ghost notes at the end. I know that probably sounds a little scary, but I promise you, it's not as hard as it looks. Let's just try the main part of the beat first. So just again, 8th notes on the hi-hat, but we're not going to even bother with that open, just straight up 8th notes. So the first step that I would suggest is let's just keep it at that tempo and let's try and add those 16th notes in with your right hand. Now they're accented, so your best bet is to go for accent and then just try and give it a little tap on your way up for the next accent. It should look a little bit like this. Let's take it nice and slow and try and coordinate what we just learned with that. Now here's the cool thing, getting those 32nd note offbeats, we're just basically going to do a single stroke roll between our hats and our snare drum. Let's just take a look at what beat 4 looks like now that we have an understanding of what those ghost notes are. So we've got an accent that lines up with the first note, and then we're going to have E and with our right hand and all the notes in between with our left hand. Now all together with the beat, nice and slow, it sounds like this. Let's give it a shot at 60 BPM. Now let's try it up at album tempo, which is 94 BPM. This next beat is called Stockholm Syndrome. It's another Blink-182 song, and the thing I like most about it is the fact that it's got all these offbeat shots and pretty much nothing on beat 1. Like when we first play this, you'll notice the very first note is a bass drum on beat 1 with a bracket around it that says not the first time. So that means our first note we're playing is on the and of 1. Now this is kind of the main sort of intro groove pattern to this tune, and it ends up sounding super cool. Let me just show you what it sounds like. Now remember, that first note that I'm hitting isn't beat 1. Alright, so that probably seems a little bit confusing and there's a whole bunch going on. So let's just break it right down. At the core of this pattern, we honestly have a really simple beat. The basic part of the beat, if we don't think about any of those pushes or shots, is just this. Now what we have is we have an accent on the and of 1 in the first bar, and then we also have it on the and of 3 and the and of 4 in the second bar. So we have a whole bunch of offbeat pushes that make this beat sound like it's coming in the middle of nowhere, which is a really fun effect on how this tune kind of just gets its vibe. So now let's try just that pattern, but let's put a straight hi-hat through it, regardless of where the pushes are. I'm still going to play a hi-hat in quarter notes through this. So now that we have an idea on where things line up from putting the quarter note through it regardless of what we were playing, let's take it back out and I'm going to show you what this sounds like exactly as it's written. So it's a 2-bar phrase with that fill coming in halfway through the second bar. Now again, I'm not starting on beat 1, so I'll click in with my sticks. So the most important thing about this beat is knowing where your hands and arms need to be. Otherwise, you're going to kind of trip all over yourself trying to make this work. So when we get to that fill, we've got the flam on the snare drum. That could be either a right-hand flam or a left-hand flam. Doesn't really matter. Then we have a flam on the toms between the two. So you've got your floor tom and your rack tom. Or if you've got 2 floor toms, that's cool too, whatever you want. Then we're going to have a crash with our right hand, followed by a snare drum with our left hand. Then we're back onto the hi-hats with the right hand again. So there's a bit of crossing over you have to deal with, but once you get used to it, it's super easy. Let's play it with the metronome at 100 BPM. Now I know we slowed the last one down to 60, but this one's at 174 BPM at the actual Apple tempo, so this will make it make more sense. And of course, once you can get that down, let's take it up to the album tempo, which is 174 BPM. So this next track is a track from one of Travis's side projects called Boxcar Racer. The tune is Tiny Voices. Now in the bridge, kind of near the end of the tune, there's this really cool part where he's playing all these offbeat ride cymbal notes, but he's holding the time together with, on the beat, left foot hi-hats. So he's basically going back and forth between left foot and right hand in eighth notes. So if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, we'd have as how we're riding throughout the groove. So it's a really kind of interesting feel. Now, the other thing to know about this before we get started is that it's a 4-bar phrase. The first bar and the third bar are identical. The second bar's got a bit of a variation, and the fourth bar's got even more of a variation. Let's take it nice and slow, and I'm just going to show you the first bar. So that's what happens for bars 1 and 3. Let's see what happens on bar 2. So instead of the 2 kicks, we've got a bass drum and a snare drum. Now the final variation on bar 4 is pretty cool. It's the only place in this particular beat that we're going to add a 16th note. So we don't have a bass drum on 1, so the first beat of this bar is just straight up hi-hat on its own, giving another kind of interesting little rhythmic fill. Let's hear what it all sounds like together, nice and slow, with the metronome. Now let's try the album tempo, which is 154 BPM. So I hope you really enjoyed these beats. These are some of the ones that got me into Travis Barker in the first place. He's got some really, really fun stuff going on. Now, if you want to learn these more in depth, because on Drumeo Edge, we spend like an hour on each of these lessons. We get way more into these, and there's more than double the content for each lesson. Just make sure you click below the video here. We've got a link and a crazy deal going on right now for you to sign up and join. I'll see you guys inside Drumeo Edge. Later.